Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are confronting a really high-stakes reality that is quietly threatening enterprise AI initiatives all across the globe. Listen, we need to talk about the uncomfortable truth here. Shipping AI agents without a robust evaluation infrastructure isn't engineering. It's just expensive guesswork. And the bill for that guesswork? Well, it usually arrives quietly, long after the damage has already been done.
Okay, let's dive into this. If you've been following this Explainer series, you know the progression. Episode 1 was the cost. Episode 2 was the trap of multi-agent complexity. Today, we talk about the lights going out. Imagine this. Your AI system is returning a perfectly formatted, totally valid response, but your user is frustrated and they're leaving. Why? Because you're flying blind. You see, traditional software is deterministic, right? You put a specific input in, you get a highly predictable output out. But AI is stochastic, it's probabilistic, it changes, it shifts over time. And if you aren't actively measuring those shifts, you are essentially driving down a pitch-black highway with no headlights on.
I want you to picture the dashboards your engineering teams look at every single day. I bet they are filled with these beautiful, reassuring green check marks. 99.9% uptime. API success rates are flawless. Latency is super low, but right next to that misleading green but broken dashboard, you have what we call a semantic failure. The agent might be responding instantly, sure, but maybe it's completely tonally wrong for your brand. Or even worse, it's delivering a wildly confident hallucination directly to a customer. Standard application performance monitoring tools only tell you if the server responded. They are completely blind to the actual agentic intent or the factual accuracy of what's being said.
So, what does this all mean? Well, this brings us squarely to the semantic measurement gap, and this is an absolutely critical concept. Measuring your standard task completion rates and API latency is necessary, for sure, but it is profoundly insufficient for LLM systems. When you're only measuring the binary success of the code executing, you are leaving a massive gap regarding the actual quality of the generated language. And right there, in that dark, completely unmeasured void, is where AI quality debt accumulates. It's invisible, silently eroding the value of your system over a 30-day deployment window. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this measurement gap isn't just some theoretical concept. Out in the real world, it manifests in 3 distinct, incredibly dangerous failure patterns. And recognizing which trap your own team is currently stuck in, that's the absolute first step to escaping it. The first trap is something we playfully, but seriously, call the vibe check release cycle. So, a new model drops, or maybe an engineer tweaks a prompt template. What does the team actually do? They sample a mere 20 to 30 outputs. They nod at each other, agree it kind of feels better, and boom, they ship it. There's no baseline, there's no holdout set. They are relying purely on instinct, right up until a very angry stakeholder eventually surfaces a failure. And by then, nobody even remembers when the degradation actually started. Then we've got the second trap, the lagging indicator trap. This is where teams are relying on downstream metrics, things like customer satisfaction scores or spike in escalation volume. But here's the kicker. By the time a model quality regression actually shows up on your CSAT dashboard, it has typically been degrading in production for 2 to 4 weeks. If you are operating in a regulated industry, think telecom, insurance, healthcare, weeks of confidently wrong AI output isn't just a UX glitch. It is a massive compliance exposure. You're basically relying on the fire alarm when you really should have installed a sprinkler system. So the crucial point is understanding this third trap, the calcified test suite. Some teams actually did the right thing 18 months ago at launch. They built a test suite. Good for them. But then the business evolved, the source documents changed, the prompts got more complex, and that original test suite, it was literally never updated. Sure, it still passes every single time, but passing a stale evaluation is not a quality signal. It's just false confidence with a timestamp. It proves absolutely nothing about your current reality. All right, let's talk solutions. Part 1, the cure. Observability first design. Enough about the dark. Let's turn on the floodlights, shall we? The cure for this blindness isn't just some magical single software tool you can buy and bolt on at the end. No, it's an entire architectural philosophy. We call it observability first design. To pull this off, we rely on core evaluation infrastructure that establishes 3 critical new pillars: traceability, the eval engine, and unit economics. Now, you'll see frameworks like Perl up here, which are fantastic for structuring your pre-release evaluation and live feedback loops. But the underlying foundation of all these processes absolutely must be built on those 3 core pillars, operating continuously at different timescales to protect your users. Let's break down Pillar 2, the eval engine.
Relying on static unit tests is just no longer enough for stochastic systems. You desperately need continuous evals. And this is exactly where the concept of LLM as a judge comes in. This means you're actually using a separate, often much larger model to automatically score your new agent's output against a known golden data set before you ever let it deploy. If the score drops, the release halts immediately. Then you move to edge monitoring, where you're using shadow testing on live traffic to catch that subtle behavioral drift that only really emerges under the stress of unpredictable real-world user inputs.
And this brilliantly illustrates Pillar 1, traceability. Just look at the fundamental difference here. Logging is pure archaeology. You're sifting through these fragmented server hits, trying to guess what on earth happened. Traceability, on the other hand, is the structured capture of the entire reasoning chain. We're talking every retrieved document, every intermediate tool call, every loop the agent took before generating that final text. Because if you have that traceability and a robust replay capability, you finally unlock Pillar 3, unit economics. Think about it. When a user reports some crazy hallucination, you don't have to just guess what went wrong. You pull that exact production trace, put it in a sandbox, and literally rerun the exact request step by step. And crucially, thanks to that traceability, you can attribute a sudden $5 inference spike in real time to a specific user, or maybe an agent loop that just got stuck in a repetitive cycle. Without replay, live feedback, and real-time cost attribution, your evaluation system is permanently stuck with only the knowledge you had on launch day. Moving on to part 2, governing the golden dataset. Because remember, evaluation is a living process. So all of this automated scoring we've talked about, it relies entirely on one foundational pillar, the golden dataset. And here's a massive warning to the enterprise architects watching this. Building a golden dataset is hard, for sure, but maintaining it is where almost every single team fails. Here are the 2 major anti-patterns that will completely destroy your evaluation integrity. First, dataset calcification. That happens when the dataset is just never updated. So you're measuring your cutting-edge system against a totally outdated reality. But dataset contamination, that is much more insidious. That happens when engineers subtly tweak their prompts specifically just to pass the golden dataset test. It's basically the LLM equivalent of a teacher giving their students the exact answers to the final exam beforehand. It creates a completely false benchmark of quality. To fight this, you need mandatory, absolute, non-negotiable governance rules. Your dataset must have at least a quarterly minimum review. It's got to be version controlled right alongside your prompts. It can literally never be used as an optimization target. It is purely a measurement instrument. And most importantly, it requires strictly named ownership. If a specific person or team doesn't have their name on it, I guarantee you the dataset will drift by default. Let's wrap this up with part 3, the executive implication. Evaluation is core infrastructure. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hard truth you absolutely need to take back to your leadership team. Evaluation is not a pre-launch checkbox, okay? It's not just something that happens to the system right before a release. It is core infrastructure. It is a compounding prerequisite for responsible, governable AI at an enterprise scale. This represents a profound shift in how we have to think about risk. Look, you can't improve what you don't measure is a very old business cliche. But in the generative era, you can't even safely operate what you don't measure. Without measurement, you don't actually have an AI strategy. You just have an unmanaged governance risk that is increasingly showing up on the regulatory radar. So, take a hard look at your own operations. What does your current evaluation coverage actually look like in production right now? Is it true semantic measurement, or is it just dashboard theater? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, especially when it's stochastic. Next week, we move into the next phase of agentic architecture. Subscribe to keep your vision clear and read the full technical deep dive on the Architecting Intelligence Substack. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay focused out there.